Peace, this is Ocean Sola of The Enchanted Life. Today I want to come on and speak with you all about my calling into birth work. So, I've given birth to 5 children. All of those births were natural births. 4 of them were given birth at a hospital, and one was given birth at home. My first experience into birthing, I was at 18 years old. Um, Pregnant with my first child. I was in college, but still living at home with my single mother. And of course, single mothers can be pretty strict. So I hit my pregnancy up until about 6 months. Um, at 6 months, um, my mother's beau at the time recognized that I was pregnant and told her, and that's how she ended up finding out. And by then, it was too late to have any alternatives. But I think by 6 months, I had also recognized that I didn't want any other alternatives. Um, it was very interesting because that was actually a little while after I told her was my first experience at the OBGYN, and that in itself was very shocking. She didn't warn me. She didn't give me any information about what that was going to entail. So I know that was meant to be like a shock factor, you know what I'm saying? But, we were there. So, yeah, it was really kind of frightening, the first experience with the OBGYN, especially not knowing what was coming. And then shortly after then, I gave birth to my first child, and I was in labor for 22 hours. Um, I went to school that day. I went to all my classes. I went to work. Went to a childbirth education class with that first pregnancy. Went into the hospital. Was there all day, and gave birth to my first child. I did have medicine. They gave me pitocin, and as well as having an epidural. Um, I gave birth to her, and I recall loving her, wanting to protect her, but also kind of feeling, like I said, traumatized by the whole experience. Wasn't really supported in that pregnancy. So, except for by her father. Her father supported. He was there the whole time. He was the first person to hold her after me. And it was just a beautiful thing to be supported by him, even though I wasn't supported by my family necessarily. My second child, my second birth was with my son. It was about 2 years later, and that pregnancy was crazy to me compared to the first one. Very nauseous all pregnancy. Um, when it came time for labor, wasn't really sure that I was in labor, but I knew it felt like I needed to use the restroom. I was in labor with him for 2 hours, and by the time we got to the hospital, it was too late to get any medicine, so I had to actually give birth to him naturally at the hospital. And at the hospital, then I recall being in so much pain, and one of the nurses says to me, "Look, you're just going to have to deal with it. You're just going to have to bear through it. There's nothing else that we can do." And so they called in like 2 nurses. They put an oxygen mask over my face, called in like 2 nurses, and these 2 nurses are grabbing my legs while the baby is coming. And I ended up kicking them, both of them, legs out. And my son almost fell onto the bed because of how fast he came out. The third child I had was in Germany. The pregnancy itself with her father was amazing. It was the first time I actually felt excited about having a child. Felt supported by the family with having this child, and we were away. We were in Germany, so the military experience with birthing is a little bit different because everybody's having children in the military, really. So, recognized I was in labor immediately, got to the hospital quickly, and immediately got medicine. Like, go ahead and get these contractions under control. That's what my thinking was. Of course, I was nowhere near as educated then as I am now. So, didn't know that I could get a doula. Didn't know anything about those things then. So it's like, yeah, give me all the medicine, give me everything. I don't want to feel anything. And I didn't. They actually dosed me up with an epidural twice during that pregnancy. Didn't feel it. They had to tell me when to push her out. But the after effects of that pregnancy was a little bit more challenging, because the effects of an epidural will have you very, very sluggish. It takes longer time to heal because of how sluggish you are, which makes it a little bit more challenging to deal with the new infant, because you're not even really here. And so yeah, I went through that. She was completely healthy as well, so 3 healthy births naturally. But with medicine, she was a little she wasn't even like an aggravated baby. Sometimes when you get epidurals with medicine, like the way I got medicine, it can make the baby a little bit more aggravating, or even she might sleep a little bit more or be a little bit more irritable, but she wasn't. She was amazing. Then I waited like 7 years to have another baby. That birth, I actually did have a doula with. She actually came to the house. We did yoga together. I got a lot of energy work during that time with this birth, with my 4th birth. The entire pregnancy, I was in meditation, into herbs. So I'm taking like my red raspberry teas and all of those things. The evening primrose, as we are moving towards birth. I was planning to go to a birthing center for that birth, but ended up being in so much pain that we went to the hospital in the area. Again, got dosed up with an epidural that only affected half of my body, so I could still feel a lot of it. And that baby came out sunny side up, which they said was unusual. So she didn't have any of the, I never say the name of the white stuff on the face correctly, but she didn't have any of that. I'll be back. So yeah, that pregnancy, she came out sunny side up, and it was amazing. Her father held her for the first time. He was the first to hold her. My experience in the hospital, though, for my 4th child, came with a lot of like students coming in. I tore. I don't know how they allowed me to tear, but I ended up tearing. So now there's a student there. I'm kind of like just sitting there wide open for everybody to see. And in that situation, my doula didn't make it because the plans didn't go my birth didn't go as we planned. So I had to deal with what was going on as it was going on. And so with my last pregnancy, I decided that I would do it at home. I would have a doula. I would do it at home. And that's exactly what I did. And my last pregnancy healed me from all the other pregnancy traumas. I did have a midwife. I did go to a birthing center for my prenatal care. What I enjoyed about that experience versus the other experiences was that in midwifery care, they don't invade the body unnecessarily, which means they're not going to keep, you go to your checkups, they're not going to check you, they're not going to check your cervix to see if it's soft, they're not going to overly touch on you outside of just like measuring your stomach, listening for the heartbeat of the baby, making sure things are going healthily. They're going to give you more natural remedies in order to move through your pregnancy, and I appreciated that. And then by the time it was time to have the baby, my doula had came down. I had already expected for her to be there for 2 weeks to help me to go through the birth and then give me a week of support. But my last child was 41 weeks, so all 3 pregnancies I had 2 weeks before the due date, but both my sons were late. My first son was late by 2 days, but my second son was late by a whole week. He was 41 weeks. So, what I enjoyed about that was that my doula was more than prepared. She actually was given the role of midwife as we were experiencing it, but she had been training under a traditional midwife anyway. So I was her first real catch by herself. I got to sit in the tub for a water birth. Yeah, I had him at home. I'm going to stop here and start my home birth journey on a different live because I've used all my time. So see you in a little bit.